Before we begin, before we begin with StrikeGraph, I'd like to quickly tell you a little bit about secure links and how we fit into the puzzle. So I'll move on to our very first slide. A little bit about secure links. What we do, we've been providing network security services since way back in '96. We evolved from there to become a managed security service provider in '98. Again, very early in the game. And obviously, as a result of that, consider ourselves to be innovators in cybersecurity. Geographically based in both BC and Ontario. However, we have customers right across the country, and we service those customers globally as well. Vertically, we're agnostic, as many cybersecurity firms are. But you have to respect at the same time, with each vertical, there comes a certain level of uniqueness that we've identified, and we can cross-pollinate with that with different types of organizations that we worked with, our expertise, and bring that to you. As cybersecurity specialists, that obviously means that we have to have a team of a highly technical, certified group of people, and that's because it's very specific at what we do every day. And in so doing, what we can do is bring that expertise back to you, making you much more effective in terms of what you do, saving you time, saving you money, saving you grief in a lot of cases. Key parts of our objectives. Uh, as a complete cybersecurity company and working in partnership with StrikeGraph, bringing you towards compliancy, we fit in, fill the gaps where you might not have the time, the resources, or where you need to draw on that expertise. That can start off with a security assessment, testing, helping you design your architecture and helping you achieve that level of compliancy as move on and identify the risks that are incorporated within your organizations. StrikeGraph is going to be speaking in depth about risk. Monitoring that after the point of where you reach compliancy, monitoring of your corporate assets, managed detection and response, MDR. I think a lot of you are hearing a lot about that these days, and it definitely is playing a current role in terms of keeping customers safe and also giving them the visibility on their network, which is key. Access, so we've from remote access, etc., has been a core of what's been taking place with COVID, and it's going to continue to do so with remote work, etc. Responding to incidents once they've been identified. And also, the core with any organization or the core risk is usually with their own users. So we do provide security workshops where we have security training tools, and that relates pretty closely towards email security. That seems to be the number one vector for attacks. Wireless assessments, not that can be in terms of improving your wireless stature, but not only that, in terms of making sure that it's secure. There's obviously an identified risk there as well. And going back to the core of what we've done all along, firewall and network security management. So with that, I'd like to introduce Emily O'Connell, who's going to take it from here and speak towards StrikeGraph and helping you achieve compliancy.
Awesome. Thank you, Norm. So again, yes, my name is Emily. I work with StrikeGraph and I manage partnerships here. So StrikeGraph High Level is a SaaS solution for cybersecurity compliance. So as Norm talked about, the cybersecurity space is huge and there is a lot to go after within it and to think about as a business, which is why you need a partner like SecureLinks. But within that realm, StrikeGraph really hones in on one main area, and that is compliance. So we help you become compliant with all the standards that are out there. Our bread and butter is SOC 2 compliance, as well as ISO 27001 and 27701, PCI DSS, and HIPAA. And we're constantly adding new frameworks. Anything that can be defined as a framework, we can bring into our solution and make sure that you can ensure compliance on an ongoing basis with that framework. So I have Sam from StrikeGraph on the call today. She's going to walk us through exactly what this looks like and how StrikeGraph could potentially help your business become compliant. And then SecureLinks is that holistic view of cybersecurity. So we kind of fit right in to the puzzle that way.
Hey, everybody. Sam Oberholzer, Director of Sales Engineering, Technical Sales, whatever you want to call that, because I actually have about 7 years in the audit world. So I started my career performing Sarbanes-Oxley for public companies at Deloitte. And, that's probably one of the strictest standards there is. And then I slowly moved into a medium security compliance firm in which I manage hundreds and hundreds of SOC 2, HIPAA supported ISO, PCI, and a bunch of privacy laws. And I'm sure, as you know, more and more laws are coming up and regulations are coming up every year. So feel free to ask questions after the demo. And Emily, I cannot share my screen right now, it says.
Norm, could you stop sharing for a second?
Okay, sorry about that. I didn't realize I was still there. Okay.
No problem.
No worries. And just to let everybody know as well, this will be recorded, or it is recorded, so we will be able to provide the links. Okay, so as Emily stated, we are a SaaS platform, and that is our main product, but we also are services that we marry it with. So we're a holistic solution that not only will help you with the prep, but then we also will join you through the entire audit process. And that is all the way through when you get that certification or the attestation report. But it's also, we're a partner throughout the entire year. So that's why we partner with Secure Links, because they're probably going to be helping you with a lot of the granular, a lot of the more technical aspects, and we're going to be guiding you working together through that process. So as you can see here, this is our compliance dashboard. So no matter what certification or compliance you're going for, it'll not only show you the tabs above, and I will tell you in the customer journey where this makes sense towards the end, but really this is the whole focus. We based our product upon what auditors will expect. The whole purpose of going through a certification is to essentially, one, understand your business risk, as well as what controls are in place to mitigate. That is the whole purpose of all these privacy laws, all these standards, certifications, is to really understand where your gaps are and how to remediate that so that your customers, your stakeholders can feel comfortable that you are doing your due diligence to essentially mitigate those risks. And so this is how your organization is going to be tracking throughout the customer journey. So the first part of our customer journey is to assess the risk. As you can see, everything of our product is very customizable, meaning you can add new risk. You can even update the risk within here in every aspect. But of course, we always start our customers with the bare minimum foundational risk, because we know that this is not natural. And we know that a lot of our customers have never been through a risk assessment. So what you see here is that this immediately replaces the old manual spreadsheets that you would have to do. So instead of taking 15 hours that that my customers in the audit world used to do, this used to be the biggest bottleneck, but now this is the first aspect of the journey. And really, this is only going to take you about 1 to 2 hours. So let's jump into it. Our organization starts with a risk assessment because, the biggest difference between us and our competitors is that we do not want to give you a checklist. We don't want to put you in a box and compare your organization. If you're a consulting firm or a software development firm, we don't want to compare you to a data center. You're going to have different controls. And so we want to make sure that we set you up appropriately and that we really scope the right controls. So here, a typical risk assessment, again, we make it simple and easy to digest. So we follow what auditors will expect. So within a risk assessment, and this one is around acceptable use of company assets. So this is not only, understanding, do you have a policy in place to start off with? Do you have a list of what the acceptable company assets, what you can install on your workstations? If the answer is no, then this might be a likelihood of a high risk, and the impact that controls are not in place might also be high. So you can see now that our system scored it as high as a combined score. And so with any risk assessment, you have risk treatment. And so here you can see that the accept the risk is no longer accepted. But if say you do have controls in place, then let's just put it as low and low. And so a combined score of low, you can now have the ability of accepting the risk. Again, since we do have services connected with our product, this is where our customer success team might do a little bit of handholding with you, and it might perform this process with you. The goal is that you essentially lead this process, but you have that capabilities, especially if you're not feeling so sure. So as you can see here within our risk assessment, we also give you recommended templated controls. Because again, we're trying to help you through this process and really see the full picture of what that looks like instead of having you build everything from scratch. And so say if you have, so right now you can see that the acceptable use is in place is active. Say if you do not have it in place, all you have to click is deactivate. And now you'll see that it's deactivated and then also not in your active controls anymore. And so I'm going to click the activate, and you can see that we're working down the workflow because the next step in the process is to essentially understand your gaps. So once you performed a risk assessment, the next step in the process is really understanding where you're currently at, the active controls that you activated within our product to mitigate the risk, and comparing it against what needs to be in place. And so if I just show you the control library, you can see here that you can see what inactive controls. You can see your active controls, but more importantly, you're going to start seeing the progression. This is going to be important for you and your team to really follow and keep you within timeline, within your own goal deadlines, and to really make sure that we're buttoning up the controls and evidence and processes before you get to audit. So now if I dive into the acceptable use policy again, you're going to see that you're going to have the option to add the control owner. And I'm going to tell you why that's important when we get to the evidence, when you're ready for audit. You're going to see the progress, the frequency, and most importantly, within this single screen, you're going to see why our product, the control, is the bread and butter of the product, and how it branches out to every other aspect. Meaning the evidence, when you're ready, it's going to remind you the risk. It's going to most importantly show you what criteria this aligns to. So the acceptable use, you could see, aligns to PCI, ISO, SOC 2. And so this is going to be important for, say if today you go for SOC 2, but then 6 months down the road, you want to add ISO. This is going to make sure that you're not duplicating efforts towards ISO. So whatever the overlap of SOC 2, we're going to apply to the ISO, and you're only going to have to address the delta. So this is going to help really organize your entire program and make sure that you're not duplicating efforts or wasting time and energy on restarting that process. So now when we go in the workflow, and if we just click employee list, now we're in the evidence tab here, and you can see the workflow throughout the entire process. We take it step by step so you and your team doesn't get overwhelmed, and so that you're really not using a lot of time and that you can still focus on your business task. So here is why the control frequency, the control owner, is important. So now you have the ability of having, of course, you can attach a manual upload, But then also now you have the option of doing automated evidence collection where it makes sense to have automated evidence collection. And so within this, if you do a manual upload, depending on the expiration schedule and depending on the owner, you're going to be getting automated evidence alerts. So you no longer have to pay attention to compliance. It's going to be in the background. And then on top of that, if you do integrate into any of the cloud tools or environments, you can set up automated evidence collection and it's going to drag down based on the frequency again. And just as a reminder, this one piece of evidence can be applicable to 3 separate controls. So you can see how a lot of controls might have overlap in evidence. And so again, that's just reiterating why we built the product on the control and not based on the audit per se. So I'm going to stop there right now and kind of see if there's any questions so far, high level questions.
And there was a question in the chat about, is the control library based on a framework? I said, yes, it's based on whichever frameworks you're looking to attain. But if you wanted to expand on that at all, that's the only question we've gotten so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So this, I mean, it's meant to really go after any frameworks that you're trying to go for, because every framework, you still have to do continuous maintenance throughout the entire year outside of audit. However, we have some customers that might be doing some internal audits or, internal side projects. And so you have the ability, since our product is so adaptable and customizable, you can even add new controls outside of maybe an external audit. So you still have those abilities to still kind of do internal work as well. I will say majority of our customers do focus on, the external audits or the main like SOC 2 or international standards. Great. Yeah, continue asking questions. Emily, when I pause, you can just always, say it out loud if you didn't answer it. But
one more question just came in actually before you jump on. What type of compliance would a Canadian school typically focus on?
Yeah, so a lot of Canadian, so I am not very well versed in the Canadian law, but I do know that a lot of Canadian companies will go, around FERPA type of scenario. So if you have universities that are your customers, they have to abide by FERPA. I believe it's called PIPA for Canada. I believe it's called something of that acronym, but it's very similar. And essentially what it is that universities and organizations that directly interact with, the students, and that the business might have the university as, the customer, but then the students might have access to your tool. You don't necessarily have to abide by FERPA per se, but since education's behind, they're going to give you questionnaires that you're going to have to fill out that still abides by the law that they have to go after. And so what you are really required to have is a foundational security and privacy program. And so what that entails is really your SOC 2. That's your most foundational. That's your least amount of efforts, that if you do need to go international or do need to go after a certain privacy law, everything that you do for SOC 2 is going to completely translate to whatever else that you have to attack later on. Does that answer your question? So I would say start small, which is your foundational SOC 2. That's the most foundational standard, security, straightforward program. And that'll help you answer those questionnaires that, the universities might be giving you. And that actually will help provide the universities your due diligence that you're doing what you're supposed to for the services they rely on.
One more question about education is asking about education pricing.
Yeah, so education pricing, for our services, I'm probably going to have to set you up with one of our account executives. But overall, our baseline for SOC 2 is 15,000 bundle package. That includes the audit as well. So that's already cheaper than if you went to a SOC 2 audit firm, because they typically charge anywhere from 10 to 20. But our package includes a pen test, it includes the product, it includes our services, and it also includes the audit, the external audit that you would need. So that I do know. Any other last questions?
Just want to add,
Go
if you
ahead.
do have, yeah, sorry, Emily. Yeah,
you're-
just if anybody does have any questions in terms of pricing, et cetera, just reach out to ourselves here at SecureLinks as well. We can help out, info@securelinks.net. So
And they asked SOC 2, what type is it? So like type 1 versus type 2 with pricing and whatnot.
Yeah, so that includes a type 1. And I can explain a little bit of the type 1 and all of these like technical questions on audit or the prep. We can 100% answer this towards the end as well, especially after my demo. But a type 1 audit is essentially your first audit that you would achieve for SOC 2. If you're not getting questions or requests for a type 2 quite yet, then you always start with a type 1. That is your point in time. That's your design. That is good for a full year, because your type 2 audit or period under scope starts the day after your type 1 report and will go for a full year until the external auditors will come back the same time frame as the previous year. The only situations I've seen where prospects of customers that I help service, even in my past life and here now, is that if they had a contract on place for 12 to 24 months and they simply just waited until the last minute. But typically you'll have a contract on a line for that type 2. So I always recommend to start off with a type 1. Cool. So I just have a couple more tabs that will honestly help paint a better picture for those educational questions as well. But the couple of the other features of our product is one, if you are a project manager for multiple compliance projects, and if you have other teammates or people involved, this dashboard is really good for not only reporting purposes, but for you to start understanding accountability of who's involved. Because this is going to break it down by the control owners and the amount of evidence and controls they actually have to perform and provide evidence for. And also, this is going to help monitor the changes within the system. So this will just be good to see who's adding evidence during what days, and essentially who's deleting evidence, just in case if something's deleted that's not supposed to. So this entire screen is really to help monitor and provide reports to your stakeholders. And then another good component is the security questionnaire. So if you are receiving vendor questionnaires from prospects, or if you're receiving RFP questionnaires, essentially, you no longer have to answer those 100 to up to a couple of hundred, 800 question questionnaires. And what you would do is just drop any blank questionnaire, any format into our product. Our AI is going to take the first pass and tie the controls and resolve your questions. We do know that some questionnaires have blank questions, have open-ended questions, yes or no questions. So that's when your dedicated customer success manager is going to take a second pass to make sure those questions are answered appropriate. And of course, these questions and the controls are being taken from your control library. And so our team is going to be there to help. And this is probably going to save you hours of work and probably the headaches, because our team has seen this many, many times. And so this is just another feature that you get that's included in that package that I just discussed. And it's always included in our product, in our platform. And then I think the last thing that I just want to show you guys to kind of tie out the whole full circle is that when you are ready for audit, and this goes for any of the standards, our team is actually going to, one, provide that to the auditors on your behalf and make sure that ties out. So you don't have to worry about that. We're going to export it for you. We're going to make sure the auditors have what they need. And then on top of that, if you want us to join any audit calls, if there is, we're going to join those to make sure that, you know, any of those questions that might be lingering are answered. And we're going to make sure that, you know, the auditors have what they need the entire step of the way. So we're not just your prep partner, but we truly see you throughout the entire process. What questions can I answer for you guys? Yes, I did just the most phenomenal job ever. I can answer any questions that you might have at high level for what the audit process looks like, any specific questions around scope maybe. We have more than enough time until the top of the hour. I would love to know if this is something that folks are interested in, if this would help them save time, really get to a trust asset, you know, quickly.
I think you might have done such a good job the first time through
Yeah.
that. You had questions.
Yeah, of course, you know, if there are any lingering questions, you know, people can always reach out as well. You know, to either secure links and then we can always connect. However you want to facilitate that, we can for sure answer questions after this webinar as well.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned before, simple enough. Just email info@securelinks.net if you do have any questions that come to mind afterwards. That's usually what happens. You know,
Yeah,
halfway through the day. I was wondering about that, and so, anyways,
absolutely.
yeah, that was an excellent overview, and obviously, you know, very efficient in terms of the time side of things as well, because I know we're all busy. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I
All
guess,
right.
yeah, unless there's anything else, I think we'll end it there. As I mentioned before, you know, and by the way, thank you very much, Sam. Thank you, Emily. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. And hopefully, you know, everybody came away with a little bit more information in terms of, you know, how they can reach compliancy and get there a lot easier. Again, my name is Norm Hartshorn. We can be reached at securelinks.net, and this was StrikeGraph. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.